What's up, y'all? It's your boy Vinnie-Dangerous, and I'm back with another installment of Dangerous Minds. I appreciate you tuning in. If you're not already subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button as well as that like and that share. Show me some love and I'll definitely show it back. Now, on this channel, I'm not too sure if I want to do album reviews. So when I announced the title of this episode and I put up the little cover art that you see at the very beginning of the video, people assumed that I was going to be doing an album review of Drake's new record, More Life, that dropped last week. And I am not really into it. My personal feelings is that it's kind of like, you know, you're in a bias. Like, I'm a musician, I'm a rapper. By the way, my new video for In Denial featuring Jaguar, QCMC, and Macedon King, my pops, that is also on the channel. If you want to check that out, is a, you know, quick plug going in there. But, you know, I've always thought that being a rapper, being a musician, and reviewing other rappers and singers and people, you know, people that do music would be a little biased, you know, considering what I make. I know the guys that Dead End Hip Hop, some of them are also rappers and producers, and they, you know, they do the album reviews without that same thought. But if you would like to see album reviews, please hit me up. Let me know if y'all like that idea. I'll, you know, definitely incorporate it in it if that's what y'all want to see. So just let me know in the comments below. But this one is different. See, after listening to More Life, which I will say that I really enjoyed this project. I like it a lot more than Views. I hated Views. And I may not be per se a Drake fan. I'm not a Drake fanboy. But when he is about to drop something, or he drops something, whether it's a feature or a song or an album, I'm front and center, because there's a certain quality to his music that, love it or hate it, is always there. And I'm always jumping to listen to it just because I'm expecting a certain type of quality. And for that reason is why I didn't like Views. If y'all heard my top 10 disappointing albums of 2016, he was number one, because I was looking forward to that album so much and it let me down in a major way. So that was just my personal opinion, and More Life more than made up for it for me. It doesn't feel like an album, so I can understand why they want to call it a playlist, which is just still weird to say. It's still weird to say. I'm going to call it an album, because whether it was this album, or if you're reading It's Too Late and you try to call it a mixtape, if you put it on sale, if you're getting paid from it, from streams and all this stuff, it's an album, bro. You know, you have to get the samples cleared, you have to do all that other stuff. It's an album, okay? You know, this album more than made up for it. Drake is 7 albums deep, I think, in the game right now. Maybe 8 if you count So Far Gone. And he's been consistently, you know, doing numbers. He has his ear to the culture. Whether people like him or not, there's a lot of people that have their opinions about where Drake fits in hip hop. Can you put him in the conversation with the greats when it's all said and done, especially after these ghostwriting rumors and, you know, him being too sensitive, him singing a lot, him kind of his authenticity being called into question because of his use of other people's languages and stuff like that. You know, he used the patois, you know, and now he's using the British accent in his new album. Yeah, it was kind of irritating to me. But without all of that, we put all that aside, honestly, I mean, unless the ghostwriting rumors, which I've talked about that in my, you know, ghostwriter versus GOAT conversation piece. But, you know, until that is confirmed and everything like that, right now you would have to put him in the conversation as being one of the greats of this generation. You can't deny that. I don't care how you try to frame it. This guy's been consistent. You got to show him, you got to give him props. I'll give him his just due if nobody else does. But with that being said, the one thing that Drake haters have always, you know, put on the forefront is basically the same conversation about Andre 3000. Except Andre 3000 has done this. He just done this as a group and not as a solo rapper yet. But is the fact that Drake does not have a classic album. And every album that Drake drops, people think, oh, this is the one. When Views was constantly teased, and you know, Drake had the 2015 he had dropped If You're Reading This, It's Too Late, which was, you know, a phenomenon. Then he dropped What a Time to Be Alive with Future, which was also humongous. He was just running, and then the Meek Mill beef, which is kind of like solidified that he was untouchable at that point. And you know, people thought Views was going to be that classic album that he's been missing, and it turned out not to be. It turned out to actually be his worst album. So, you know, people always say like Drake never has had a classic album, and I'll agree. That's the one thing I will say about Drake, is that he has not put out that Reasonable Doubt. He has not put out that Illmatic. He's not put out that Ready to Die. He's not put out that College Dropout. He's not put out that Good Kid, Mad City. He has not reached the one pinnacle that has always been associated with the greats in hip hop, which is that classic album. And I can honestly tell you that I think he will never do it at this point. And listening to this album, I came to that realization myself. Like I said, when Drake drops something, I am always on the forefront with it. I really want to hear what he got to say. I really want to know what direction Drake's music is going to go in. I think the closest that he's ever came that really confirmed me as a fan. I was definitely like everybody else. Like, I was amazed by So Far Gone, because it was so different than anything else that was coming out in 2008, 2009. There was nothing sounding like Drake, and it was dope, and people loved it. So, you know, why not? They're like, you know, like, I'm all in. I'm all in. Then Thank Me Later took me out. I was like, this was your chance. Like, you had all the hype in the world. You had everybody was looking at what Drake was gonna do next. It was hit song after feature after, you know, everything that this guy did was just legendary forever. And So Far Gone just gave him so much momentum. And then he dropped Thank Me Later, which on a pop sense, it made him successful. It was really everything that he could have done, like radio friendly wise and everything. He was untouchable in that manner. But when it comes to a cohesive project and, you know, like a solid, you know, foundation to build his career on, because the mixtape was a mixtape, but once you drop the album, it kind of just solidifies you. And Drake dropped the ball with Thank Me Later. He made up for it with Take Care. And Nothing Was the Same is very underrated to me. People always talk about, when they talk about Drake's closest attempt to a classic, Take Care is definitely that album, but Nothing Was the Same was a close second. I was a huge fan at that point. But it's the thing about classic albums. Classic albums come when you're the most hungriest. Classic albums come when you are the one, like, you have something to prove. Like, all the eyes are on you, and this is your first attempt at showing the world, this is what I can do. When you give it your all from the first one. That's why all those albums I just mentioned, Reasonable Doubt, Ready to Die, Illmatic, College Dropout, those albums were the first albums of their discography. And because they had something to prove. Kanye had to prove that he was more than just a producer. Jay had to prove that he could step out of Biggie's shadow. Biggie had to prove that he could just make this shit happen. Illmatic was a statement, and it changed hip hop forever. It's the first album seems to be the one. I mean, not in all cases. Outkast had endless classics, but you can argue that their second and third album and fourth album even are like their best projects, better than their first album. And when I heard More Life, I was listening to it, and the thing I said was, wow, Drake is not hungry anymore. Like, in the songs where he's like, you know, it's him and Quavo and Travis Scott, or him and 2 Chainz and Young Thug, he was a background player on his own song. It's kind of like, he has this like thing. That's what I kind of felt about Views, and I felt disrespected as a fan, was the fact that it just felt like he didn't care anymore. I can put out whatever I want, and these people are gonna buy it anyway. Why should I give you my all? Why should I go completely left field and give you some kind of like timeless classic if I don't have to? And I think that hunger is the reason why we'll never hear a classic Drake album at this point. Drake doesn't have to do much to get the success, to get the, you know, the record breaking streams and the album sales. He doesn't have to do much to get all of that. And at this point, I'm a wrestling fan. So at this point, he's kind of more like the Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan in the late 80s and early 90s had the world in the palm of his hand, and all he had to do was flex, do a couple moves here and there, drop a leg drop, win, and go home. The fans loved him. He didn't have to do flips. He didn't have to put his body through a lot. He just did his couple moves here and there and made his money. And really, once you have the world in your hands, once you have all this success, once you're a solidified name, just like Jay-Z has been putting out some of his most mediocre work these last couple albums, because Jay is a name now. Jay doesn't care about making the music as much because he's a business. Now, I could be wrong. I don't know this man personally, but that's just the impression that I get when you listen to Blueprint up against Magna Carta, Holy Grail. You just don't feel that hunger anymore because you are a made man in this industry. And at this point, Drake is a made man in this industry. Drake missed the boat with Take Care slightly, and he missed the boat with Thank Me Later. And at that point, he was already a star. He already had his fans. He already has his success. He doesn't need a classic album. So at this point, I think we just need to accept the fact that we are going to be entertained by mediocrity coming from Drake at this point, because we're not going to get another Take Care. We're not going to get another Nothing Was the Same. We're not going to even get another Risk like If You're Reading This Is Too Late. And we're not going to get a classic album from Drake. But I can say I'm still going to be a fan. I'm still going to enjoy the music, but I'm not expecting it anymore. And that has been another edition of The Dangerous Minds. Please tune in the next couple weeks when I talk about a new topic that I'll figure out maybe a couple days in advance. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Please follow me on Instagram for the page at Dangerous Minds Podcast. Join in on a discussion post, and I'll see you again next time. Peace.